It's 3 a.m. You know it's 3 a.m. because you've watched every single minute crawl by since 1:47. The room is dark, but the darkness isn't empty. It hums, it pulses, and somewhere between the stillness of your pillow and the ceiling you've memorized in the shadows, your mind has built an entire courtroom, and you are on trial. Your chest carries a weight that has no name, no shape, just this pressing, sinking heaviness, as though gravity decided that tonight it only applies to you. Your heart is hammering. Not because you're running, not because you're in danger, but because somewhere deep inside your brain, an alarm is ringing in an empty building. And so, here is the question that matters. Why does your brain, the very thing that is meant to protect you, choose the moment you are most vulnerable to show you every mistake you've ever made and every disaster that hasn't happened yet? Here is something I need you to hear before we go any further. This is not your fault. This is not weakness. This is not some broken part of who you are. What you're experiencing right now is a biological glitch, nothing more. Deep inside your brain, there is a tiny, ancient structure called the amygdala. Think of it as a smoke detector. Its only job is to scan for danger and sound the alarm, and it is extraordinary at that job. The problem is, it cannot tell the difference between a house fire and a birthday candle. So tonight, while you lie perfectly safe beneath your blanket, that alarm is screaming because it picked up the faintest wisp of smoke from a candle you blew out years ago. But now, I want you to consider something that might change the way you see this moment entirely. The very energy that is keeping you awake, this relentless, churning force inside your mind, it is not your enemy. It is a misplaced power. Think about what your brain is doing right now. It is constructing entire futures that don't exist. It is replaying scenes with details so sharp you can feel them in your body. That is not the work of a weak mind. That is the work of an extraordinarily powerful one. And if your mind is strong enough to build such vivid worlds of fear, then I promise you, it is strong enough to build an unbreakable peace. We just have to show it how. Right now, your mind is like a radio tuned to static. Every channel is playing at once, voices overlapping, fragments of worry crashing into each other, until the noise feels like the only thing that's real. But here is what we are not going to do tonight. We are not going to fight the static. We are not going to wrestle the dial. We are not going to scream over the noise. We are simply going to change the frequency, slowly, gently, until the static fades and all that is left is a signal so clear and so quiet, it feels like coming home. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk beside you through the architecture of your worry, and we are going to take it apart, piece by piece, cell by cell. You will learn how that guardian of fear operates, and more importantly, you will learn how to walk right past it, not by fighting, not by forcing, but by understanding the one thing it never expected you to know. And on the other side of that door is a place your body remembers, even if your mind has forgotten. A sanctuary of deep, restorative silence, where sleep is not something you chase. It is something that finds you. But for now, I'm only going to ask you to do one thing. Don't take a deep breath. Don't try to relax. Just take one conscious breath. Just one. Feel the air enter your nose. Feel your chest rise and fall. And know that with that single breath, you have already begun to leave the watchtower of anxiety behind. You don't have to climb down all at once. You just have to let go of the railing. I'll be here for every step that follows. Right now, somewhere deep inside your skull, behind your eyes, beneath the folds of your thinking brain, there is a structure no larger than an almond. It sits in the oldest part of your mind, a region that was fully formed long before you ever learned language, long before you ever knew your own name. It has been with you since before your first memory. And tonight, while you lie still in a dark room, that tiny almond-shaped cluster of neurons is doing what it has done every single night of your life. It is standing guard. It is scanning the darkness. It is listening for something that isn't there. This is your amygdala, and it is the reason you cannot sleep. To understand why your mind turns against you at night, you first have to understand what this structure was built to do, because it was not built for the world you live in. It was built for a world that no longer exists. Imagine, for a moment, a time hundreds of thousands of years ago. There are no walls around you. There is no roof above your head. There is no lock on a door, because there are no doors. You are lying on the ground beneath an open sky, and the sun has just disappeared below the horizon. In that world, darkness was not a comfort. Darkness was a death sentence. Every sound in the brush could be a predator. Every shift in the wind could carry the scent of something that wanted to eat you alive. And so your brain developed a system, an internal radar so sensitive, so finely tuned, that it could pull you from the edge of sleep at the faintest snap of a twig. That system is the amygdala. It was your ancestors' greatest invention. It kept them alive through countless nights when everything in the darkness had teeth. And here you are, hundreds of thousands of years later, lying in a temperature-controlled room, on a mattress designed for your comfort, behind a locked door in a building made of concrete and steel. Nothing is hunting you. Nothing is coming for you through the dark. But that ancient radar does not know that. It does not understand modernity. It cannot read a calendar. It has no idea what century it is. All it knows is that the lights went out, the world got quiet, and its job is to scan for danger. So it scans, and when it finds no lions in the shadows, it does not rest. It simply changes what it's looking for. This is what I call the evolutionary hangover. The machinery that once scanned the tree line for predators now scans your bank account for shortfalls. The system that once listened for footsteps in the grass now replays a conversation you had 6 months ago, searching for the moment you said the wrong thing. The alarm that once fired because a shadow moved outside the cave now fires because you remembered an email you forgot to send. The targets have changed, but the mechanism is identical. Your amygdala does not distinguish between a lion crouching in tall grass and an unpaid bill sitting in your inbox. To this ancient guard, threat is threat. And in the dark, when every other part of your brain has grown quiet, that guard's voice becomes the loudest thing in the room. There is a reason this happens specifically at night, and it has everything to do with how your senses work. During the day, your brain is flooded with input. Light pours through your eyes, sound fills your ears, people speak to you, screens flash at you. The world demands your attention from every direction. And all of that noise, all of that stimulation actually serves a hidden purpose. It keeps the amygdala occupied. When your brain has 1,000 things to process on the outside, it has very little bandwidth left to spiral on the inside. But the moment you lie down, The moment the lights go dark and the room falls silent, something shifts. The river of external information slows to a trickle. Your visual cortex has almost nothing to process. Your auditory system is picking up only the hum of silence. And into that vacuum, that sudden absence of stimulation, the amygdala steps forward like a soldier who has been waiting all day for his shift to begin. Think of it this way. Imagine a room full of people all talking at once. Somewhere in the corner, there is a man who has been muttering warnings all day long. You couldn't hear him over the crowd. You didn't even know he was there. But now, one by one, every person in that room leaves. The voices fade, the doors close, and suddenly, the only voice left is his. He hasn't gotten louder. He was always this loud. You just couldn't hear him until everything else went silent. That is what happens to your anxiety at night. It does not grow stronger in the dark. It simply becomes the only voice left in an empty room. And this is where I want you to understand something important about what you are feeling right now. Because if you are lying in the dark with your heart beating faster than it should, with your thoughts spiraling from one worry to the next, with a tightness in your chest that feels like it will never let go, I need you to know that you are not broken. You are not weak. You are not failing at something that everyone else finds easy. What you are experiencing is the activation of one of the most powerful survival systems ever designed by evolution. Your biology genuinely believes it is protecting you. It is wrong, but it is sincere. Let me give you a picture that might help. Imagine a night watchman posted outside your door. He has been guarding you your entire life. He has never taken a break. He has never slept. He has never once looked away from the darkness, because his only purpose, his only reason for existing, is to make sure nothing hurts you while you sleep. Now imagine that this watchman has been on duty for so long, has been so alert for so many years, that he has started to see things that aren't there. A coat hanging on a doorknob becomes an intruder. The creak of the house settling becomes a footstep. The wind against the window becomes a whisper. He isn't lying to you. He genuinely sees these threats. His eyes have been open in the dark for so long that he has begun to hallucinate danger where none exists. And every time he sounds the alarm, your entire body responds as though the threat is real. Your heart rate climbs, your muscles tighten, adrenaline trickles into your bloodstream, your breathing becomes shallow and quick. Not because anything is happening, but because the watchman said something was happening, and your body has never once questioned him. This is the hyper-vigilance state. And if you have ever lain in bed and told yourself to just relax, just calm down, just stop thinking, you already know that those words are useless. You cannot talk yourself out of a biological siege. You cannot reason with a system that operates below the level of reason. The amygdala does not process language. It does not listen to logic. It fires before your conscious mind even knows what triggered it. By the time you think the thought, "I'm anxious," your body has already been anxious for several seconds. The alarm went off in the basement of your brain, and by the time the message reached the penthouse where your rational mind lives, the whole building was already on alert. This is why telling yourself to relax feels like trying to put out a fire by politely asking it to stop. The fire doesn't speak your language, it only responds to the conditions around it. So here is the question I want to sit with you for a moment. What if your anxiety isn't your enemy? What if this force that keeps you awake, that tightens your chest, that races through your thoughts like a searchlight sweeping an empty field? What if it is not a malfunction but a misguided protector? A guardian that simply doesn't know the war is over? Because that is the truth of it. Your amygdala is not trying to torture you. It is trying to save your life. It is an old guard dog, half blind and mostly deaf, barking at the wind because that is the only thing it knows how to do. It heard something once, years ago, maybe decades ago, and it has never stopped barking since. Not because the threat is still there, but because no one ever walked over, placed a hand on its head, and said, "It's all right. You can rest now. The door is locked. The house is safe. There is nothing out there." And that, in its simplest form, is the first step towards sleep. Not fighting the alarm, not hating the watchman, not screaming at the guard dog to be quiet, but instead, creating what I call the safety loop. The safety loop is the process by which you send a signal back down through the layers of your brain, from the rational, conscious mind at the top, all the way down to that ancient, frightened sentinel at the bottom, and you let it know, slowly and gently and repeatedly, that the perimeter is secure, that the room is safe, that tonight there is nothing in the darkness but darkness itself. You cannot do this with words alone. Remember, the amygdala does not speak your language, but it does listen to something. It listens to your body. It monitors your breathing. It tracks your heart rate. It reads the tension in your muscles like a seismograph reads tremors in the earth. And when those signals begin to shift, when the breathing slows, when the muscles soften, when the heart stops racing, the amygdala receives a message more convincing than any thought you could ever think. The message is simple. If the body is calm, the world must be safe. We will learn exactly how to send that message, but not yet. Because before we can calm the body, we need to understand what the amygdala's alarm actually does to it. You see, this is not just a story that happens in your head. The watchman doesn't just sound the alarm and leave it at that. The moment he decides there is danger, he pulls a lever, and that lever sets off a chain reaction that reaches every corner of your physical body. Your nervous system shifts into a mode it was only ever meant to use for emergencies. Your blood chemistry changes. The way your heart beats changes. The way your lungs draw air changes. Even the way your stomach and your gut function changes. Every system in your body rearranges itself around a single assumption, that you are in danger and you need to survive the next 60 seconds. And this is the cruel irony of anxiety at night. The alarm was meant to save your life in a burst, a flash, a sprint through the tall grass to safety. It was designed to last minutes at most. But when the danger isn't a lion, when the danger is a thought, when the danger is a memory or a fear of tomorrow, the alarm doesn't shut off. Because you cannot outrun a thought. You cannot fight a memory. And so the system that was built to protect you in a 60-second emergency keeps your body locked in that emergency for hours. Your biology is running a survival program that has no finish line. That is where we are going next. Into the body itself, into the feedback loop that connects the anxious mind to the racing heart, the tight chest, the shallow breath, and the muscles that will not unclench. Because once you understand that loop, once you see how the watchman's alarm travels from your brain into your blood and your bones, you will also begin to see something remarkable. You will see the exact place where that loop can be interrupted, the exact point where the chain can be broken, gently, without force, without struggle, and the body can finally send the one message the amygdala has been waiting to hear all along. The room is safe, the night is quiet, and you are allowed to sleep. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly, quietly, just to yourself. Have you ever noticed how your body starts fighting a battle before your mind even knows who the enemy is? Have you ever been lying perfectly still, thinking about nothing in particular, when suddenly your heart begins to pound? And then, because your heart is pounding, you think something must be wrong. And because you think something must be wrong, your chest tightens. And because your chest tightens, your breathing becomes shallow. And because your breathing becomes shallow, a wave of dread washes over you. And now you are fully awake, fully alert, fully terrified. And if someone were to ask you what you are afraid of, you would not be able to name a single thing. You just know that something feels wrong. Something feels dangerous. And your entire body agrees. That is the feedback loop. And tonight, I am going to show you exactly how it works, piece by piece, wire by wire, so that the next time it tries to pull you under, you will recognize it not as a crisis, but as a circuit, a mechanical process, a pattern of signals bouncing between two systems that have accidentally convinced each other that the world is ending. It begins with a thought. It almost always begins with a thought. Sometimes the thought is loud and obvious, a worry about money, a fear about your health, a conversation that went wrong. But sometimes the thought is so quiet, so brief, that you don't even register it consciously. It might be nothing more than a flicker, a half-formed what if that passes through your mind like a shadow crossing a window. You may not even remember thinking it, but your brain remembers, and more specifically, a part of your brain called the hypothalamus remembers. The hypothalamus sits just above the brainstem, and its job is deceptively simple. It is a relay station. It takes information from the emotional centers of your brain, particularly the amygdala, and it translates that information into a physical response. Think of it as a translator who sits between your mind and your body. The amygdala says, "danger," and the hypothalamus converts that single word into a language your body can understand. That language is chemistry. Within milliseconds of that whispered, "what if?" the hypothalamus sends a cascade of signals down through your nervous system. It activates what is known as the sympathetic branch, the part of your autonomic nervous system that controls your fight or flight response. And in an instant, before you have taken your next breath, your body begins to change. Your adrenal glands release a pulse of adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Your heart rate increases, not because you told it to, but because it was told to by a system that operates entirely outside your conscious control. The muscles in your shoulders, your jaw, your lower back begin to tighten, bracing for an impact that will never come. Your breathing shifts from deep and slow to shallow and rapid, because your body is trying to take in more oxygen in preparation for a sprint, a fight, a desperate physical effort that your situation does not require. Blood moves away from your digestive system and toward your limbs. Your pupils dilate. Your skin may begin to tingle or feel cold. All of this happens in seconds. All of this happens automatically. And all of it was triggered by a thought you may not even remember having. Now here is where the loop becomes something more sinister. Here is where it stops being a single reaction and becomes a self-sustaining storm. because your brain did not simply send a message to your body and then walk away. Your brain is still listening. It is always listening. And what it hears now is deeply troubling to it. It hears a heart that is beating too fast. It feels muscles that are rigid with tension. It notices breathing that is quick and shallow, the kind of breathing that only happens when a person is in danger. And your brain, specifically your amygdala, interprets all of these signals as confirmation. The logic, if you can call it logic, goes something like this. I thought there might be danger, so I told the body to prepare. Now the body is showing every sign of being in danger. Therefore, the danger must be real. Do you see what happened? The mind created a fear. The fear changed the body, and the changed body convinced the mind that the fear was justified. The alarm created the evidence for its own existence. It is like a fire alarm that is so loud it shakes the walls, and then someone points at the shaking walls and says, "You see, the building really is falling apart. The building is fine. The walls are only shaking because of the alarm." But try explaining that to a system that cannot reason, that cannot pause, that can only react. This is what scientists call the bidirectional communication between the brain and the body. It is not a one-way street. It is a conversation, and right now, in the dark, it is a conversation that has gone terribly wrong. The brain speaks to the body in the language of chemistry and electrical impulse. The body speaks back to the brain through a system called interoception, which is your brain's ability to sense what is happening inside your own body. Every heartbeat, every breath, every microtension in every muscle fiber is being reported back to the limbic system in real time. And the limbic system, that ancient emotional brain where the amygdala lives, does not interpret these signals with nuance. It does not say, "Well, the heart is racing, but that's probably just because I told it to race a few seconds ago." It says, "The heart is racing, something is wrong. Sound the alarm again." And so, the alarm sounds again, and the body responds again, and the body's response is reported back again, and the alarm sounds again. Around and around and around it goes, each cycle a little louder, a little faster, a little more convincing than the last. I want you to picture something. Imagine you are standing in a hall of mirrors. You walked in carrying a single candle, just one small flame. But now, as you look around, you see that flame reflected 1,000 times in every direction, 1,000 fires burning in 1,000 mirrors, stretching out to infinity. And for a moment, just for a moment, you forget that you are holding the only real flame. You look at the 1,000 reflections, and you think the entire hall is on fire. That is what the feedback loop does to a single anxious thought. It takes one small flicker of worry and reflects it through the body and back into the mind so many times that it appears to be an inferno. But it was only ever one flame. Every other fire you see is a reflection, a copy, an echo of something small that was made to look enormous by the architecture of the room. Or think of it this way. Imagine a microphone placed too close to a speaker. The microphone picks up a sound, any sound, even the faintest whisper, and sends it to the speaker. The speaker amplifies it and plays it back. The microphone picks up the amplified sound and sends it to the speaker again. The speaker amplifies it further. Within seconds, that faintest whisper has become a piercing, unbearable shriek that fills the room. The sound isn't coming from outside. Nothing is generating it. It is being created entirely by the connection between the microphone and the speaker, each one feeding the other in an endless, escalating cycle. Your anxious mind is the microphone. Your anxious body is the speaker. And that shriek you hear at 3 in the morning, that unbearable noise of dread and panic and racing thoughts, it is not the sound of real danger. It is feedback, pure, mechanical, self-generated feedback. And here is perhaps the most important thing I will say to you in this entire chapter. The thing that makes this loop so powerful, so convincing, so utterly consuming is that the sensations it produces are real. Your heart really is pounding. Your chest really is tight. Your hands really are trembling. These are not imaginary symptoms. They are genuine, measurable, physical events happening inside your body right now. And because they are real, your brain has every reason to take them seriously. This is what I call the interoceptive trap. You believe you are afraid of the future. You believe you are afraid of what might go wrong tomorrow, next week, next year. But that is not actually what is keeping you awake. What is keeping you awake is the sensation in your chest right now, the tightness in your throat right now, the feeling of your own pulse in your ears right now. You are not afraid of the future. You are afraid of what your body is doing in the present. The fear is not out there, in some imagined catastrophe. The fear is in here, in the pounding and the tightness and the shallow breath. And because those sensations are happening right now, in this moment, they feel more real and more urgent than any rational thought could ever compete with. This is why you cannot think your way out of anxiety. This is why lying in the dark, telling yourself that everything is fine, does absolutely nothing. Because the part of your brain that processes rational thought, your prefrontal cortex, operates slowly and deliberately. It builds arguments, it weighs evidence, it speaks in complete sentences. But the limbic system, the emotional brain, the amygdala, they operate at the speed of reflex. They don't wait for evidence. They don't build arguments. They feel the body shift and they react. And by the time your rational mind has assembled a calm, logical case for why there is nothing to worry about, the emotional brain has already fired another round of adrenaline, and the body has already tightened another notch, and the whole loop has cycled forward again, drowning out your logic with sensation. It is not a fair fight. It was never designed to be. In the world your brain was built for, stopping to think about whether the danger was real would have gotten you killed. Speed was survival. React first, think later. And so the system was wired to prioritize sensation over reason, feeling over logic, the body's alarm over the mind's reassurance. That wiring kept your ancestors alive. But tonight, in this bed, in this safe room, that same wiring is keeping you prisoner. So, what do? If we cannot outthink the loop, and we cannot out-argue the alarm, and we cannot simply tell our bodies to stand down, then how do we stop the shriek? How do we separate the microphone from the speaker? The answer is not in the mind. Not yet. The mind is compromised. It is caught in the echo chamber of its own fear, reading the body's distress signals and amplifying them with every cycle. No, the answer is in the body itself, because remember what I told you. This is a bi-directional system. The brain changes the body, yes, but the body also changes the brain. The conversation goes both ways. And if we can learn to alter the body's signals, if we can slow the breathing, soften the muscles, quiet the heart, then we send a new message back up through the interoceptive channels, a message that does not say danger, a message that says safe. And the amygdala, for all its power, for all its speed, for all its ancient, relentless vigilance, has no choice but to listen. Because the body is the only language it truly understands. What we need is not willpower. What we need is not positive thinking. What we need is chemistry. We need to understand the specific molecules that fuel the storm and the specific molecules that can quiet it. We need to understand what cortisol and adrenaline actually do when they flood your system at night. And we need to understand what happens when a different set of chemicals, quieter chemicals, slower chemicals, begin to take their place. Because inside your body, right now, there is a pharmacy more powerful and more precise than anything you could ever buy. It has the exact compounds needed to dissolve the loop, to silence the feedback, to take that shrieking, escalating signal and gently, gradually bring it back down to a whisper. That pharmacy has always been there. You have simply never been taught how to open it. But that is about to change. Because in the next chapter, we are going to walk through the chemistry of calm, molecule by molecule, and you are going to learn that the antidote to this storm has been living inside you all along, waiting patiently for the moment you finally learned how to reach for it. Right now, as you lie here, your body is holding on to something. You can feel it, even if you cannot name it. It is in the tightness behind your ribs. It is in the restlessness of your legs. It is in the way your jaw is clenched, even though you have no reason to clench it. Your body is gripping something invisible, holding it close, refusing to let go. And I want you to consider a possibility that might change the way you understand this moment entirely. What if your restlessness is not a sign that something is wrong with you? What if it is simply your body holding on to energy it thought it needed to save your life? Because that is exactly what is happening right now. In your bloodstream, there is a chemical story being told. It is a story of survival, and every sensation you are feeling, every ounce of tension, every flutter of your racing heart is a chapter in that story. To understand why you cannot sleep, you need to understand what that story is, who is writing it, and most importantly, how to bring it to a close. Let us begin with the molecule that is most responsible for the state you are in right now. Its name is cortisol. You have probably heard of it. It is often called the stress hormone, but that name does not do justice to how powerful and how persistent this chemical truly is. Cortisol is not like adrenaline. Adrenaline is fast and loud. It hits your system like a crack of lightning, jolts everything into action, and then fades relatively quickly. Cortisol is different. Cortisol is slow. Cortisol is patient. Cortisol settles into your bloodstream like a fog that refuses to lift, and it changes everything it touches. When the amygdala sounds its alarm, when the hypothalamus relays that alarm to the body, one of the first things that happens is that your adrenal glands, two small organs sitting on top of your kidneys, begin to release cortisol in a steady, sustained stream. And cortisol's primary job is something called glucose mobilization. What that means in simple terms is this: cortisol tells your liver to release stored sugar into your bloodstream. It tells your cells to stop their normal maintenance routines and instead prepare for emergency action. It tells your muscles to stay primed, your blood vessels to stay constricted, your brain to stay focused on the threat, whatever the threat may be. Cortisol, in essence, converts your entire body into a machine optimized for one single purpose: survival in the next few minutes. And this is why you feel the way you feel right now. That restless energy in your limbs is not nervousness, it is fuel. Your body has flooded itself with glucose, with ready energy, because it believes you are about to run for your life. Your muscles are tight because they are loaded, coiled, ready to spring. Your mind is racing because cortisol has sharpened your focus to a razor's edge, narrowing your attention onto anything that could possibly be a threat. You are, in every measurable biological sense, prepared for a physical emergency. The only problem is that no emergency exists. And so all of that energy, all of that fuel, all of that readiness has nowhere to go. It just sits inside you, buzzing, humming, pressing against the walls of a body that is lying perfectly still in a dark room. This is why you cannot simply think your way to calm. I need you to understand this, not as a failure on your part, but as a biological fact. When cortisol is elevated, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, planning, and emotional regulation, is actually suppressed. Cortisol actively dials down the thinking brain and dials up the reactive brain. It is as though someone turned down the volume on your wisdom and turned up the volume on your fear. This is by design. In a real emergency, you do not want to be standing there philosophizing about the nature of danger. You want to react. And so cortisol makes sure you react by quieting the very circuits that would allow you to pause and assess. When someone tells you to just calm down, just stop worrying, just think positive, they are asking you to use a part of your brain that has been chemically dimmed. It is like asking someone to read a book in a room where the lights have been turned almost all the way off. The book is still there. The words are still there, but you cannot see them. Not because you are incapable, but because the conditions will not allow it. So if thinking cannot get us out, what can? The answer lies in a different molecule entirely. Deep within your brain, there is a neurotransmitter whose entire purpose is to slow things down. Its name is gamma-aminobutyric acid, but you can call it GABA. If cortisol and adrenaline are the accelerator pedals of your nervous system, then GABA is the brake. It is the single most important inhibitory neurotransmitter in your brain. And what that means is that when GABA is released, it attaches to neurons that are firing too fast, and it tells them, gently but firmly, to stop. It dampens the electrical activity in the amygdala. It quiets the racing signals in the limbic system. It softens the sharp edges of the stress response and allows the body to begin shifting from its emergency state back to its resting state. GABA does not fight the anxiety. It does not argue with it. It simply turns down the dial, one notch at a time, until the noise fades to something manageable, and then to something soft, and then to something barely audible at all. The problem is that when cortisol is high, GABA production is suppressed. The very chemical that could save you from this spiral is being held back by the chemical that created the spiral in the first place. It is like trying to use the brakes on a car while someone else is cutting the brake lines. The system that should restore your calm is being actively undermined by the system that stole it. This is not a flaw in your character. This is a flaw in the engineering. And once you see it for what it is, a mechanical problem, a chemical imbalance, a system that has gotten stuck in the wrong gear, it becomes something that can be fixed, not with willpower, not with positive thinking, but with a specific, deliberate shift in the conditions of your body. I want you to imagine something. Imagine you are holding a glass of water, and that water is thick with salt. So much salt that you can taste it in the air, so much that the water is nearly opaque, clouded, and heavy and undrinkable. That glass is your bloodstream right now, saturated with cortisol, loaded with adrenaline, dense with stress chemicals that have nowhere to go. Now, imagine that above that glass, there is a stream of fresh, clean spring water, and it begins to pour in, slowly at first, just a thin, steady trickle. The salt water does not disappear immediately. It cannot. There is too much of it. But with each passing moment, the fresh water dilutes it a little more. The glass becomes a little clearer. The heaviness thins. The bitterness fades. You do not need to dump the glass out. You do not need to fight the salt. You simply need to keep the fresh water flowing until the balance shifts, until what was once unbearable becomes tolerable, and what was tolerable becomes almost clean. That fresh water is GABA. That fresh water is the parasympathetic response. That fresh water is the chemistry of calm, and it is already inside you, waiting to flow. All we need to do is open the valve. Or think of it as an engine. Your body right now is an engine that has been running at full throttle for hours. The RPMs are redlined. The temperature gauge is buried in the danger zone. The metal is hot. The pistons are screaming. And if it continues like this, something is going to give. What this engine needs is not to be turned off. You cannot simply switch off a human nervous system. What it needs is coolant. A steady, measured flow of something that absorbs the heat, that brings the temperature down degree by degree, that allows the metal to stop expanding and the pistons to stop screaming and the whole system to settle back into a rhythm it can sustain. Your body has this coolant. It has always had it. The parasympathetic nervous system, the counterpart to the fight or flight response, carries with it an entire toolkit of calming chemicals. Acetylcholine to slow the heart, serotonin to ease the mind, endorphins to soften pain and tension, and GABA, always GABA, to quiet the neurons that have been firing all night like sparks from a grinding wheel. These molecules are not exotic. They are not rare. They are produced by your own body in your own brain every single day. The machinery is all there. The pharmacy is fully stocked. The only thing that has been missing is the signal to begin dispensing. And here is where something beautiful happens. Something your body does that most people never learn about. When the cortisol finally begins to drop, when the stress chemicals begin to thin and the parasympathetic system begins to take over, your brain initiates a process that is nothing short of extraordinary. It is called the glymphatic system, and it is one of the most important discoveries in neuroscience in the last 2 decades. The glymphatic system is essentially your brain's cleaning crew. During the day, as your neurons fire and your thoughts churn and your emotions rise and fall, your brain produces metabolic waste, tiny molecular byproducts of all that mental activity. Think of it as dust that accumulates on a factory floor during a long shift. During waking hours, that dust just builds up. The factory is too busy to clean. But when you sleep, when you truly sleep, when cortisol is low and the parasympathetic system is in control, your brain's glial cells shrink slightly, opening up channels between them. And cerebrospinal fluid rushes through those channels like water through the streets of a city being washed clean in the rain. This glymphatic wash does not just clear metabolic waste, it clears emotional residue. The fragments of worry, the echoes of fear, the half-processed anxieties that have been rattling around your brain all day, they are swept away in this nightly tide. This is why, after a night of true deep sleep, problems that seemed catastrophic at midnight feel manageable by morning. It is not that the problems changed. It is that your brain was finally allowed to process them, to file them, to wash away the emotional charge that made them feel so overwhelming. But this process cannot begin until the chemistry shifts. The glymphatic system does not operate under siege conditions. It waits. It waits for the cortisol to drop. It waits for the GABA to rise. It waits for the body to send that one unmistakable signal that the emergency is over and the night shift can finally begin its quiet, healing work. So everything comes down to this. How do we send that signal? How do we tell the adrenal glands to stand down? How do we encourage the release of GABA when cortisol has been suppressing it? How do we open the valve and let the fresh water begin to flow? The answer is not a pill. It is not a technique you perform with your mind. It is a physical pathway, a nerve, a single nerve that runs from the base of your brain all the way down through your chest and into your abdomen. It is the longest nerve in your body, and it is the single most powerful tool you have for shifting your chemistry from crisis to calm. It is called the vagus nerve, and it has been waiting for you to learn its name. Most people live their entire lives without knowing that this pathway exists, without knowing that they have a direct, physical line of communication to the very systems that control their heart rate, their breathing, their digestion, and their ability to sleep. But you are about to learn not only what this nerve is, but exactly how to activate it, how to speak its language, and how to use it to flush the last of the cortisol from your blood and invite the chemistry of peace to take its place. That is where we are going next, and I promise you, what you are about to discover will feel less like learning and more like remembering something your body has always known. There is a nerve inside your body that you have never been formally introduced to. It has been with you since before you were born. It was one of the first structures to form when you were still being assembled in the womb, long before your fingers, long before your eyes, long before the folds of your thinking brain had even begun to take shape. It runs from the base of your skull, just behind your ear, and it travels downward, branching and weaving through your body like the roots of an ancient tree. It wraps around your heart. It threads through your lungs. It descends into your stomach, your intestines, your gut. It touches nearly every organ you have. And tonight, it is the single most important structure in your entire body because it holds the key to everything we have been building toward. It is called the vagus nerve, and it is your body's emergency brake. To understand what this nerve can do for you, I want you to first understand what it is. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the autonomic nervous system. Its name comes from the Latin word for wanderer, because that is exactly what it does. It wanders. It meanders through your body like a river that refuses to follow a straight path. sending branches into your throat, your vocal cords, your heart, your lungs, your liver, your spleen, your kidneys, your entire digestive tract. No other nerve in your body has this kind of reach. No other nerve touches this many systems. And what makes it truly extraordinary is that it is not a one-way wire. It is a two-way highway. Information travels down the vagus nerve from the brain to the body, telling your organs how to behave. But information also travels up the vagus nerve from the body to the brain, telling your mind what is happening in your physical world. 80% of the signals carried by the vagus nerve travel upward from body to brain. That means your body is not just listening to your mind. Your body is talking to your mind, and it is talking 5 times louder than your mind is talking to it. This changes everything, because up until now, you may have believed that the path to calm begins in the mind, that you need to fix your thoughts first, quiet the mental noise first, and then the body will follow. But the vagus nerve tells us the opposite is true. The fastest, most reliable path to a calm mind is through a calm body, and the vagus nerve is the road. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, your sympathetic nervous system is in control. That is the fight or flight system, the one we have been discussing all along. It has your heart beating fast, your breathing shallow, your muscles tight, your cortisol elevated. It is the system of emergency, but sitting right beside it, like a quiet counterpart that has been waiting patiently in the wings, is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the system of rest and recovery. It is the system that slows the heart, deepens the breath, relaxes the muscles, and begins the long process of flushing the stress chemicals from your blood. And the vagus nerve is the primary channel through which the parasympathetic system communicates with your body. When the vagus nerve is activated, it sends a direct physical signal to your heart that says, slow down. It sends a signal to your lungs that says, breathe deeply. It sends a signal to your adrenal glands that says, stop releasing cortisol. It sends a signal to your brain that says the danger has passed, the siege is over, you are safe. Think of it this way. Imagine you are in a building and all the lights are flickering. The electrical system is overloaded. Circuits are firing randomly. Alarms are sounding in rooms where there is no fire. The whole building feels like it is on the verge of a catastrophic short circuit. Now imagine that somewhere in the basement of that building, there is a room you have never visited. And in that room, on the wall, there is a lever, a single manual lever. And when you pull that lever, it does not fix every wire individually. It does not go room by room, turning off each alarm. It resets the entire system at once. The flickering stops. The alarms fall silent. The lights steady themselves. The building exhales. That lever is your vagus nerve, and you are about to learn how to pull it. There is a concept in neuroscience called vagal tone. Think of vagal tone as the strength and responsiveness of your vagus nerve. People with high vagal tone can shift from a stress response back to a calm state, quickly and efficiently. Their emergency brake works smoothly. It engages the moment it is needed, and it brings the whole system to a gentle stop. People with low vagal tone, on the other hand, get stuck. Their stress response activates easily, but deactivates slowly. The brake is stiff, reluctant, hard to engage. They may lie awake for hours, not because their anxiety is worse than anyone else's, but because their body's ability to recover from the anxiety is slower. The alarm fires, and then it just keeps ringing, not because the danger persists, but because the mechanism for turning off the alarm is weak. Here is the remarkable thing. Vagal tone is not fixed. It is not something you are born with and stuck with forever. It is something you can train. It is something you can strengthen, the way you would strengthen a muscle, through specific, repeated, deliberate action. And the simplest, most immediate way to strengthen your vagal tone and activate your parasympathetic nervous system is through one thing you are already doing right now: breathing. But not just any breathing. There is a specific pattern that speaks directly to the vagus nerve, and it has to do with the relationship between your inhale and your exhale. When you breathe in, your heart rate naturally increases slightly. This is because inhalation activates the sympathetic nervous system. Just a little, just enough to bring in oxygen and prepare the body for action. But when you breathe out, something different happens. Exhalation activates the vagus nerve. It stimulates the parasympathetic system. It sends that direct physical signal to the heart that says, slow down. This is why a sigh of relief feels the way it does. It is not psychological. It is physiological. That long exhale is literally pressing the brake. So when your exhale is longer than your inhale, you are tipping the balance of your nervous system away from emergency and toward rest. You are not fighting your thoughts. You are not wrestling with your anxiety. You are simply changing the ratio of two physical movements, in and out, and letting the vagus nerve carry that message to every organ it touches. This is the vagus hack, and it is so simple that it almost feels like it shouldn't work, but it does. It works because it operates on the level of biology, beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath the stories your mind is telling. It works because the vagus nerve does not care what you are thinking. It only cares what your body is doing. Let me ask you something. What if you didn't have to fight your thoughts to find peace? What if you didn't have to win an argument with your own mind at 3 in the morning? What if you could simply tell your body that it is safe and let your mind follow? Because that is exactly what is available to you right now. Not through effort, not through force, but through the gentle, deliberate act of breathing out a little longer than you breathe in. There are other ways to speak to the vagus nerve as well. Gentle pressure on the eyelids, very light. Just the weight of your fingertips resting on closed eyes stimulates a branch of the vagus nerve that runs through the ocular region. This sends an immediate calming signal to the heart. Splashing cold water on the face activates what is known as the dive reflex, a mammalian response that instantly lowers heart rate and redirects blood flow to the vital organs. Humming, chanting, even gargling activate the vagus nerve through its connection to the vocal cords and the muscles of the throat. Each of these actions is a different way of pulling that lever in the basement. Each one sends the same fundamental message. You are not in danger. You are safe. You can let go. But tonight, we will begin with the simplest and most powerful of all, the breath. I want you to picture a ship in a storm. The waves are high. The wind is howling. The deck is pitching from side to side. Everything feels chaotic, uncontrollable, violent. Now imagine that from the belly of that ship, a heavy iron anchor begins to lower into the water. It does not stop the storm. The wind still blows. The waves still crash, but the ship stops being thrown. It steadies. It holds its ground. It rocks, gently now, but it does not drift. It does not capsize. The anchor did not fight the storm. It simply gave the ship something to hold on to, something deep and heavy and immovable beneath the surface. Your breath is that anchor. The storm of your thoughts may continue for a while. The wind of your worry may still howl, but with each long, slow exhale, you are lowering something heavy and steady into the waters beneath your conscious mind. And your body, your ship, will begin to steady around it. Let us try it now. Not a dramatic breath, not a performance, just a quiet, private shift in the way the air moves through you. Breathe in through your nose, gently, for a count of 4. Feel your ribs expand. Feel the air fill the lowest part of your lungs first, as though you are filling a glass from the bottom up. Now let that breath go, slowly, through your mouth or your nose, whichever feels more natural, for a count of 6. Not forcing it out, just letting it leave, the way water flows downhill, without effort, without struggle, just gravity and release. And as that exhale empties from your body, notice what happens. Notice the slight softening in your chest. Notice the almost imperceptible loosening in your shoulders. Notice how, for just a moment, the space between your thoughts grows a little wider. That is the vagus nerve responding. That is the parasympathetic system waking up. That is the emergency brake beginning to engage. Do it again. In for 4, out for 6. And this time, as you exhale, imagine that you are not just releasing air, you are releasing the grip. The grip your body has been holding all night, the clenched muscles, the braced posture, the coiled readiness for a disaster that never came. Let it go with the breath. Not all at once. You don't have to let it all go at once. Just a fraction. Just 1 degree of softness. That is enough. The vagus nerve does not need a grand gesture. It needs repetition. It needs consistency. It needs you to show it, breath by breath, exhale by exhale, that the emergency is winding down. In for 4, out for 6. And with every cycle, the cortisol thins a little more. The adrenaline retreats a little further. The GABA begins to flow a little more freely. The heart slows. The muscles soften. The mind, still noisy, still restless, begins to notice that the body beneath it is changing. And because the mind reads the body, because 80% of the vagal signals travel upward, the mind begins to change too. Not because you told it to, not because you argued with it, but because the body told it something new. The body said, "We are safe now." And the mind, slowly, reluctantly, like a guard dog that has been barking all night and is finally growing tired, begins to believe it. This is the somatic bridge to silence. This is the physical pathway from anxiety to peace. And now that we have begun to cross it, now that the body has started to soften and the chemistry has started to shift, something else becomes possible. Something that was not possible when the alarm was blaring and the cortisol was surging and the whole system was locked in emergency mode. For the first time tonight, the thinking brain is coming back online. The prefrontal cortex, that part of you that was dimmed and suppressed by the stress chemicals, is beginning to brighten, and with it comes a capacity that anxiety had stolen from you. the capacity to examine the stories your mind has been telling, because the thoughts did not disappear. They are still there, quieter now, but present, and they will try to restart the loop if we let them. So before they can, we are going to do something your mind does not expect. We are not going to fight those thoughts. We are not going to push them away. We are going to look at them calmly, clearly, with the steady gaze of a mind that is no longer under siege. And we are going to discover that most of them were never true to begin with. That is where we go next, into the narrative itself, into the stories that the anxious mind spins in the dark, and into the gentle, transformative art of rewriting them. Now that the body has begun to soften, now that the breath has started to slow and the chemistry has started to shift, I want to turn your attention to something that has been happening in the background this entire time. While we were learning about the amygdala and the feedback loop and the cortisol and the vagus nerve, your mind has been doing something else. It has been telling stories. You may not have noticed, because these stories feel so familiar, so automatic, so much like the natural furniture of your inner world that you mistake them for reality. But they are not reality. They are narratives. They are scripts written by a part of your brain that has been running unsupervised in the dark. And tonight, for the first time, we are going to walk into the projection room and look at who has been writing them. Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this question for a moment before you answer it. If you had a friend who talked to you the way your anxiety does, how long would you keep them in your life? Imagine a person who called you every night at 3 a.m. to tell you that everything you have built is about to fall apart. A person who reminded you, in vivid detail, of every mistake you have ever made, every word you wish you could take back, every moment of embarrassment or failure or loss, and then, not satisfied with the past, began describing a future so bleak, so catastrophic, so perfectly engineered to terrify you that you could feel it in your chest. You would not tolerate that person. You would not answer their calls. You would recognize very quickly that this person is not helping you. They are not protecting you. They are torturing you. And yet, when that same voice comes from inside your own head, you treat it as gospel. You listen to every word. You believe every prediction. You lie in the dark and let it narrate your destruction as though it were reading from a book of facts. It is not reading from a book of facts. It is improvising. And it is doing a terrible job. What your brain is doing right now has a name in cognitive psychology. It is called catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is a specific pattern of thought, a cognitive distortion in which the brain takes a small piece of information, often incomplete, often ambiguous, and leaps to the worst possible conclusion it can construct. You made a mistake at work, so you will be fired. You felt a pain in your chest, so you are dying. Someone didn't reply to your message, so they hate you. Your savings account dipped, so you will end up homeless. Each of these conclusions feels absolutely real in the moment. Each one arrives with a weight, a gravity, a physical sensation that makes it feel like truth. But it is not truth. It is a draft. A rough, panicked, unedited first draft written by a part of your brain that specializes in worst-case scenarios, because for most of human history, preparing for the worst case was the difference between life and death. This is the negativity bias at work. Your brain is not a balanced reporter. It never has been. It is wired, at the deepest level, to prioritize threats over opportunities, danger over beauty, loss over gain. If you walk through a garden with 99 flowers and one snake, your brain will remember the snake. It will forget every petal, every color, every fragrance, and it will replay the image of that snake for weeks. This is not a flaw in your intelligence. It is a feature of your survival programming. The ancestors who paid more attention to the snake than to the flowers lived longer. The ones who stopped to admire the roses did not. And so the brain you inherited is a machine that scans for the negative, amplifies the negative, and stores the negative with more clarity and more emotional charge than anything positive that happens to you. During the day, you can counterbalance this. You can check the stories against evidence. You can call a friend. You can look at your bank account and see that it is fine. You can reread the message and realize it was not hostile. But at night, those checks and balances disappear. Here is why. During the day, your prefrontal cortex, that brilliant, rational, executive part of your brain that sits just behind your forehead, is fully online. It is the editor, the fact-checker, the calm voice that reviews the anxious brain's frantic first drafts and says, "Hold on, let me look at this more carefully. Is this actually true? What is the evidence? What are the other possibilities?" But the prefrontal cortex is one of the first regions of the brain to weaken as the day wears on. It is metabolically expensive to run. It requires enormous amounts of energy. And by the time night arrives, especially if you have been stressed, it is running on fumes. Its ability to regulate emotion, to assess probability, to distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one, is significantly diminished. And into that void steps something else. Something that has been waiting all day for the editor to leave the room. It is called the default mode network. The default mode network is a collection of brain regions that activates when you are not focused on any specific external task. It is the part of your brain that daydreams, that reminisces, that imagines the future, that constructs narratives about who you are and what your life means. It is, in many ways, the storytelling brain, and it is extraordinarily active at night. When the lights go out, when the external world fades, when the prefrontal cortex dims and the amygdala brightens, the default mode network takes over the narrative entirely. It begins to project. And what it projects, in the absence of a reality check, in the absence of an editor, in the dark theater of your mind, is a movie about everything that could go wrong. I want you to imagine this. You are sitting in a dark theater. The seats are empty. The doors are locked. And on the screen in front of you, a film is playing. It is called The End of Everything, and it stars you. It shows you failing. It shows you losing the people you love. It shows you humiliated, abandoned, broken, alone. The scenes are vivid. The dialogue is sharp. The emotional score is overwhelming. And because you are the only person in the theater, because there is no one sitting beside you to lean over and whisper, you know this isn't real, right? You begin to believe it. You begin to feel it in your body. Your heart pounds during the scary parts. Your stomach drops during the scenes of loss. You grip the armrests and forget, completely forget, that what you are watching is a projection. Light on a screen, A story told by a machine in a room you never entered. You are not the movie. I need you to hear that. You are not the catastrophe on the screen. You are not the failure, the loss, the humiliation, the abandonment. You are the screen. You are the blank, neutral, unchanged surface upon which these images are being projected. The screen is never damaged by the movie. The screen does not burn during the fire scenes. It does not break during the disaster scenes. It does not die during the death scenes. It simply holds the images and lets them pass. And when the film ends, the screen is exactly as it was before the movie began. Clean, unmarked, whole. The voice narrating that movie, the voice that tells you this is real, this is your future, this is what you deserve. That voice is what I call the unreliable narrator. And once you recognize it for what it is, once you see it clearly, it begins to lose its power over you. The unreliable narrator is not wise. It is not prophetic. It is not a messenger from the future delivering warnings you need to heed. It is a scared child, a small, frightened part of you that learned very early in life that if it could predict every possible danger, if it could rehearse every possible catastrophe, then maybe, just maybe, it would never be caught off guard. It would never be heard without warning. And so it narrates endlessly, compulsively, spinning story after story of disaster. Not because disaster is coming, but because the act of predicting disaster is the only thing that makes it feel safe. There is a principle in cognitive behavioral therapy that I want to give you now, and it is one of the most liberating ideas you may ever encounter. It is called the distinction between fact and feeling. Just because a thought feels heavy does not mean it is true. I will say that again, because it matters. Just because a thought arrives with weight, with urgency, with a physical sensation that presses down on your chest and tightens your throat and fills your eyes with tears, does not mean that thought is an accurate representation of reality. Feelings are not evidence. Intensity is not proof. A thought can be absolutely overwhelming and absolutely wrong at the same time. This is not easy to accept. Every part of your emotional brain will resist it because the emotional brain measures truth by intensity. If it feels real, it must be real. If it feels urgent, it must be urgent. If it feels certain, it must be certain. But think about dreams. In a dream, you can feel genuine terror, genuine grief, genuine panic. Your body responds as though everything happening is real. Your heart races, you sweat, you cry out, and then you wake up and realize that none of it was true. The feelings were real. The sensations were real, but the story was fiction. Your anxious thoughts at 3 a.m. operate on the same principle. The feelings they produce are real. The sensations they trigger in your body are real. But the story, the narrative, the catastrophic prediction about your future, that is the dream, and you are allowed to wake up from it. Here is how you begin. The next time a thought arrives in the dark, heavy and urgent, and dressed in the costume of truth, I want you to do something very simple. I want you to label it, not argue with it, not analyze it, not try to prove it wrong. Just label it. Say to yourself, silently, gently, the way you would speak to a frightened child, that is a story, not that is true, not that is false. Just that is a story, because the moment you label a thought as a story, you create a tiny gap between you and it. You step back from the screen just an inch, just enough to remember that you are not the movie. You are the one watching it. And in that gap, in that tiny space of awareness, the thought loses its grip. It does not disappear. It does not need to disappear. It simply becomes what it always was, a narrative, a draft, a projection, something your brain created, not something reality delivered. That is a story, 3 words, and each time you use them, the gap grows a little wider. The narrator's voice grows a little softer. The movie on the screen grows a little less convincing. You are not fighting your thoughts. You are not suppressing them. You are simply declining to give them the authority they are demanding. You are saying, I hear you, I see you, but I am not going to live inside you tonight. This is the narrative shift. This is the moment where you stop being a character in your anxiety's story and become the author of your own. And now that you have begun to separate yourself from the noise, now that you can see the thoughts for what they are without being consumed by them, something new becomes possible. We can build something. We can create in the space that your calm body and your quiet breath and your gentle awareness have opened up, a place where those stories cannot reach you, a room inside your mind, designed by you, furnished by you, protected by you, where the narrator's voice fades to nothing and the only thing left is stillness. That room is waiting for you. And in the next chapter, we are going to build it together, wall by wall, detail by detail, until it is so real, so vivid, so deeply yours that your mind will have no choice but to step inside and rest. We have quieted the alarm. We have slowed the chemistry. We have loosened the grip of the stories your mind was telling. And now, in this space that we have opened up together, in this clearing where the noise has faded and the breath has steadied and the body has begun to remember what stillness feels like, we are going to do something different. We are not going to analyze anything. We are not going to explain anything. We are going to build something. Right here, right now, inside the architecture of your own mind, we are going to construct a room. And when it is finished, it will be the safest place you have ever been. Before we begin, I want you to understand why this works. Because it is not wishful thinking, and it is not fantasy. There is a reason that visualization has been used in clinical psychology, in trauma therapy, in performance science, and in pain management for decades. The reason is that your brain, for all its extraordinary complexity, has a remarkable limitation. It cannot easily tell the difference between something you are vividly imagining and something that is actually happening. When you visualize a scene with enough sensory detail, with enough texture and temperature and weight, the same neural pathways activate as if you were physically standing in that scene. Your brain begins to release the same chemicals it would release if the experience were real. Oxytocin, the hormone of safety and connection. Serotonin, the molecule of contentment and well-being. These are not metaphors. These are measurable, physical substances that your brain produces in response to perceived safety. And the key word is perceived. Your brain does not require the safety to be external. It does not need walls made of concrete. It does not need a locked door or a guard posted outside. It only needs to believe, deeply and sensorially, that you are in a place where nothing can harm you. And if you can build that place inside your own mind with enough vividness, enough detail, enough felt reality, your brain will respond as though you are there. Because in every way that matters to your nervous system, you are. Remember the default mode network we discussed earlier, the storytelling brain that runs wild in the dark, projecting catastrophe and disaster onto the blank screen of your closed eyes. That same network, that same capacity for vivid internal construction can be redirected. It is not inherently destructive. It is simply powerful. It is a projector that will play whatever film you load into it. Until now, anxiety has been choosing the film. Tonight, you are going to choose it instead. And instead of a movie about everything that could go wrong, you are going to project something very different. You are going to project a sanctuary. Here is a question I want you to hold as we begin. If the world outside is beyond your control, if you cannot stop the bills from arriving, and the relationships from being complicated, and the future from being uncertain, why not build a world inside where you are the absolute authority of peace? A world where nothing enters without your permission. A world where the temperature is exactly what you need it to be. Where the light is exactly as soft as you want it. Where the silence is so complete that you can hear your own heartbeat and feel comforted by it. That world is not an escape. It is a foundation. And the more real you make it, the more your body will respond to it as though it were the most solid ground you have ever stood on. Let us begin. I want you to close your eyes if they are not already closed. And I want you to let go, for now, of the room you are actually in. Let go of the mattress beneath you. Let go of the ceiling above you. Let go of the walls and the windows and the sounds of the house. You can come back to them later. They will wait. For now, you are somewhere else. You are standing at a door. It is a heavy door, thick and solid, made of a material that feels warm to the touch. It could be dark wood, old and polished, with a grain you can feel under your fingertips. It could be smooth stone, cool and ancient, like the entrance to a place that has existed for centuries. It could be something else entirely. It is your door. Only you know what it looks like. But what matters is that when you press your hand flat against its surface, you feel its weight, you feel its density, and you understand instinctively that whatever is on the other side of this door, noise cannot reach it, worry cannot penetrate it. The stories your mind has been telling, the catastrophes, the predictions, the unreliable narrator with its endless warnings, all of it stops here, on this side of the threshold. This door is the boundary, and you are about to step through it. You push the door open, slowly, and you step inside. The first thing you notice is the air. It is exactly the right temperature, not warm enough to make you restless, not cool enough to make you tense. It is the temperature of comfort itself, the temperature your skin stops noticing because it requires no adjustment, no effort, no resistance. The air feels soft. There is a quality to it, almost like velvet, as though breathing it in is not just functional but pleasurable. Each inhale feels like drinking something clean and cool. Each exhale leaves your body a little heavier, a little more settled, a little more willing to stay. Now notice the floor beneath your feet. It is solid. Whatever surface you are standing on, it holds you completely. Maybe it is smooth, warm stone that radiates a gentle heat upward through the soles of your feet. Maybe it is thick, soft carpet that your toes sink into, so plush that each step feels like the ground is embracing you. Maybe it is polished wood, broad planks with a depth of color that speaks of age and permanence. Feel the ground. Feel how it supports every ounce of your weight without effort. You do not have to hold yourself up in this room. The floor does that. The room does that. You are held. The walls of this room are important, and I want you to build them carefully. These are not ordinary walls. Think of them as a psychological Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is a structure that blocks all external electromagnetic signals from entering. Nothing gets through. No radio waves, no transmissions, no interference from the outside world. Your walls function the same way, but for thought, for worry, for the signals of stress that have been bombarding your nervous system all night. In this room, those signals cannot reach you. They hit the walls and they stop. The worries about tomorrow do not exist in this space. The regrets about yesterday have no permission to enter. The what-ifs and the worst cases and the should-haves and the might-be's, all of them remain on the other side of that heavy door you just closed behind you. In here, there is only now. In here, there is only this. Look around the room. Notice the light. It is not bright. It is not dark. It is the kind of light that exists in the hour just after sunset, when the world is bathed in something golden and amber and impossibly gentle. The light in this room does not come from any single source. It seems to emanate from the walls themselves, from the air itself, as though the room is generating its own quiet radiance. It asks nothing of your eyes. You do not need to squint. You do not need to adjust. Your eyes are soft in this light. Your face is soft in this light. Everything about you is soft in this light. Now notice the sound, or rather, notice the absence of it. This room is silent in a way that the real world never is. There is no hum of electricity, no distant traffic, no creaking of a house settling. There is simply nothing. And this nothing does not feel empty. It feels full. It feels like the silence itself is a substance, thick and warm, wrapping around you the way water wraps around a body in a still, deep pool. This silence is not the silence that your anxiety fills with noise. This is a silence that cannot be filled. It is complete. It is sovereign. It is the kind of quiet that your nervous system has been aching for. The kind that tells every cell in your body that there is nothing to listen for, nothing to brace against, nothing to monitor or guard or prepare for. Just rest. Just this. Find a place in this room to lie down. Maybe there is a bed here, low and wide, with sheets that feel like they were made from clouds, heavy enough to hold you but soft enough to melt into. Maybe there is a deep chair, curved and cradling, that supports every part of your body so that no muscle has to work. Maybe you simply lie down on that warm floor, feeling the heat rise into your back, your shoulders, the base of your skull. Wherever you are, let your body settle into the surface beneath you. Let your weight release. All of it. Not just the weight of your body, but the weight you have been carrying in your mind, the obligations, the responsibilities, the performance of being fine. Let it all press downward, through you, into the surface that holds you, and feel how the surface does not buckle, it does not strain. It was built exactly for this. It was built to carry everything you need to set down. This is your room. No one else has a key. No one else knows it exists. The people you love are safe tonight, and you do not need to worry about them from this place. The tasks that await you tomorrow will still be there in the morning, and they do not require your attention now. The version of you that handles the world, that solves the problems and pays the bills and navigates the complexity of being alive, that version can rest now. They have done enough for today. In this room, you are not a parent or a partner or an employee or a caretaker. You are simply a person who is allowed to stop. There is something I want to share with you about this room, and it is perhaps the most remarkable thing of all. The more you visit it, the more real it becomes. Each time you close your eyes and step through that door, the walls grow thicker, the silence grows deeper, the sense of safety grows more automatic. Your brain, through repetition, begins to build stronger neural pathways to this place, until arriving here feels less like an exercise and more like coming home. And here is the paradox. As this internal world becomes more solid, more vivid, more deeply rooted in your nervous system, your external world begins to change as well. Not because the circumstances of your life have shifted, but because you have shifted. A person who carries an internal sanctuary with them moves through the world differently than a person who is perpetually under siege. They respond instead of react. They pause instead of panic. The safety you build in here radiates outward, into your waking life, into your relationships, into the way you hold yourself in moments of uncertainty. The peace is not contained by these walls. It leaks through them, gently, steadily, into everything you touch. So settle into this room now. Feel the weight of your body pressing into whatever surface holds you. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Feel the silence pressing gently against your ears, like the softest hands. And know that this place is yours. It has always been yours. You simply had not built it yet. But now that you are here, now that the walls are solid, and the door is closed, and the silence is complete, I want to gently draw your attention to one more thing. Notice that even in this perfect room, even in this sanctuary of absolute safety, there is still a part of you that is watching, a part of you that is monitoring, a small, quiet voice near the door that is listening for something, not because there is a sound, but because it does not yet know how to stop listening. That is the last remnant of the guard, the final echo of the watchman. And in our next chapter, we are going to do something that may seem impossible. We are going to let him rest, not by forcing him away from the door, not by arguing with his vigilance, but by showing him something he has never seen before, that the door does not need guarding. That safety is not something that requires constant defense, that the deepest peace comes not from controlling every variable, but from the breathtaking, terrifying, liberating act of letting go. I want you to consider the possibility that the very thing you have been doing all night, the thing you believed was bringing you closer to sleep, has been the thing keeping you from it. I want you to consider that every effort you have made, every technique you have tried, every time you closed your eyes tighter and told yourself to just fall asleep already, you were not moving toward rest. You were moving away from it. And I want you to consider that this is not your fault. It is one of the cruelest paradoxes of the human brain. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you become. This is not a metaphor. This is a clinically documented phenomenon, and it has a name. It is called sleep effort, and understanding it may be the most important thing you learn tonight. Deep in the core of your brainstem, there is a system called the reticular activating system. Think of it as the brain's master switch for wakefulness. Its job is to keep you alert, to keep you conscious, to keep you engaged with the world. During the day, this is exactly what you want. It keeps you focused, responsive, present. But at night, for sleep to occur, this system has to gradually power down. It has to dim. It has to release its hold on your conscious awareness and allow a different set of processes to take over. The slow, quiet, parasympathetic processes that usher you into sleep. And here is the problem. The reticular activating system responds to intention. It responds to effort. It responds to wanting. Every time you think, "I need to fall asleep," that thought is an act of conscious will. It is a goal. And the moment your brain registers a goal, the reticular activating system does exactly what it was designed to do. It engages. It lights up. It says, "There is something this person is trying to accomplish, so I need to keep them awake and alert to accomplish it." Your brain cannot tell the difference between trying to solve a math problem and trying to fall asleep. Both are acts of effort. Both require the engagement of consciousness. And consciousness is the very thing that must dissolve for sleep to arrive. So there you are, lying in the dark, trying harder and harder to sleep, and with every ounce of effort, you are sending a signal to the one system in your brain whose job it is to keep you awake. You are pressing the accelerator and wondering why the car will not stop. There is another layer to this, and it makes the trap even more complete. In 1987, a psychologist named Daniel Wegner conducted a now famous experiment. He asked participants to do something very simple. He told them, for 5 minutes, not to think about a white bear. That was the only instruction. Do not think about a white bear. What he found was that the participants thought about the white bear more than they would have if he had never mentioned it at all. The instruction to suppress a thought did not suppress it. It amplified it. The mind, in trying to monitor whether or not it was thinking about the forbidden thing, had to keep referencing the forbidden thing. It had to keep checking. Am I thinking about the white bear? No. Good. Wait, I just thought about it to check whether I was thinking about it. Now I'm thinking about it again. Wegner called this ironic process theory, and it applies to sleep with devastating precision. When you lie in bed and tell yourself, "Don't think about being awake. Stop worrying about not sleeping. Don't think about how tired you will be tomorrow." Your brain must hold the very concept of wakefulness in its awareness in order to avoid it. You cannot suppress a thought without first activating that thought. You cannot try not to be awake without reminding yourself constantly and relentlessly that you are awake. The monitoring process itself becomes the source of the arousal. You are the white bear. Wakefulness is the white bear, and every attempt to push it from your mind pins it more firmly to the center of your attention. Do you feel the trap now? Effort activates the wakefulness system. Suppression amplifies the thing being suppressed. Trying harder makes it worse. Trying not to try is still trying. The conscious mind, for all its brilliance, cannot solve this problem because the conscious mind is the problem. Sleep does not arrive through effort. Sleep is not an achievement. It is not a task to be completed or a goal to be reached. Sleep is what happens when the effort stops. It is what remains when the doing dissolves and the trying ceases and the grasping hand finally opens. And that is the image I want to give you now. Imagine you are standing in a quiet garden, and on the branch of a tree nearby, there is a small bird. You want the bird to come to you. You want it desperately. And so you reach out your hand and you grab for it. The bird flies away. You chase it. It flies further. You lunge. You grasp. You stretch your fingers as far as they will go, and the bird retreats with every advance, always just out of reach, always startled by the very energy of your wanting. Now imagine something different. Imagine that you stop. You stop reaching. You stop chasing. You stand still. You extend your hand, palm open, fingers relaxed, offering nothing, demanding nothing, and you wait. Not with expectation, not with impatience, just with openness. And after a while, after the stillness has convinced the bird that you are not a threat, it returns. It circles once. It lands, weightless and gentle, on your open palm. That bird is sleep, and it will never, ever land on a clenched fist. This is the paradox of control. The thing you want most tonight is the thing you cannot pursue. The act of pursuit is the act of prevention, and the only way to arrive at sleep is to stop traveling toward it. I know how this sounds. It sounds like I am asking you to do the impossible. You are exhausted. Your body aches with fatigue. Tomorrow looms with all its demands, and I am telling you to stop trying. I am telling you that the solution to your sleeplessness is to stop solving it. Every part of your conditioned mind rebels against this idea. You have been taught your entire life that effort produces results, that trying harder leads to success, that giving up is failure, and in almost every area of life that is true. But sleep lives in a different country. Sleep operates under different laws. In the country of sleep, effort is gravity, and the harder you push, the deeper you sink. Think of quicksand. If you have ever seen a movie where someone steps into quicksand, you know what happens. They panic, they thrash, they kick and struggle and claw at the edges, fighting to pull themselves free, and with every movement, they sink deeper. The quicksand does not respond to force. It responds to force by tightening its grip. The only way out of quicksand is the most terrifying option available. You have to stop moving. You have to lie back. You have to spread your weight across the surface and become still. So still that the quicksand has nothing to grip. And slowly, imperceptibly, you begin to float. Your fight to escape was the very thing trapping you. Your stillness is what sets you free. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this, not as a thought experiment, but as a genuine invitation. What would happen if you gave yourself permission to stay awake all night? Not as a punishment, not as a resignation, but as a true, unconditional release. What if you said to yourself, if I am awake all night, that is acceptable. If sleep does not come, I will survive. I do not need to fix this. I do not need to solve this. I can simply lie here, in this safe room we built together, in this body that has slowed and softened, and I can let the night be whatever it is. What would happen to the tension in your chest if you said that? What would happen to the knot in your stomach if you truly, deeply meant it? If you stopped fighting the darkness, would it still feel like an enemy? Or would it become something else entirely? Something neutral, something soft, something that was never against you in the first place, something that was simply waiting for you to stop struggling so it could hold you. This is the surrender secret. And I use the word surrender very carefully because it does not mean defeat. It means release. It means opening the hand. It means setting down the oars in a river that was always going to carry you anyway. The moment you stop demanding sleep, the moment you release the desperate grip on unconsciousness, something shifts in your neurobiology. The reticular activating system, that master switch of wakefulness, registers the absence of intention. There is no goal. There is no task. There is nothing for consciousness to engage with. And without engagement, without a reason to stay lit, it begins to dim. The monitoring stops. The effort dissolves. The white bear wanders off because there is no one left watching for it. And into that vacancy, into that warm, open, unguarded space, sleep does what sleep has always done. It arrives on its own, unbidden, unhurried, like a tide that does not need your permission to rise. You do not have to do anything right now. That is the gift of this moment. There is nothing to practice, nothing to perfect, nothing to get right. You have spent this entire night working, learning, building, breathing, constructing a sanctuary, understanding your chemistry, training your vagus nerve, relabeling your thoughts. And all of that was good. All of that was necessary. It brought you here. But here is where the work ends. Here is where you cross the line from doing into being, from effort into ease, from the clenched fist into the open hand. You are lying in your safe room. The walls are solid. The silence is deep. The air is the perfect temperature. Your body is heavy with the weight of genuine relaxation, not performed relaxation, not forced relaxation, but the real, earned heaviness of a body that has been gently and systematically released from its siege. Your breath is slow. Your heart is steady. Your mind is quieter than it has been in hours, maybe days. And now I am asking you to take the final step. I am asking you to stop guarding the door. You built this room. You built it beautifully. And somewhere near the entrance, that last remnant of vigilance is still standing watch, still listening, still scanning for the faintest whisper of a threat. And it has served you well. It brought you safely through the night. But its shift is over now. And the bravest thing you can do, braver than any fight, braver than any defense, is to let it rest. Not because the world is safe. The world is complicated and uncertain, and it will be complicated and uncertain tomorrow. But because you are safe, right here, right now, in this room, in this body, in this breath, you are safe enough to let go. And letting go does not mean losing yourself. It does not mean disappearing. It means something far more profound than that. It means allowing the boundary between you and the night to soften, allowing the edges of your awareness to blur the way the horizon blurs at dusk, until you cannot quite tell where the sky ends and the sea begins. It means letting the night stop being something you resist and start being something you dissolve into. The way salt dissolves into warm water, not destroyed, not gone, just gently, willingly, becoming part of something larger and quieter than itself. That is where we are going now. Into the final chapter, into the place where thought becomes mist and effort becomes memory. And the boundary between waking and sleeping grows so thin that you pass through it without even knowing it happened. We are going to the place where the mind stops narrating, and the body stops guarding, and the self stops holding on, and the silence stops being an absence and becomes, instead, the most full and complete and perfect presence you have ever known. You are almost there. You have been almost there for longer than you realize. All that remains is to stop reaching for it and let it reach for you. You have come so far to reach this moment, so far. And I want you to know, before we go any further, that the hardest part is behind you. Everything you have done tonight, every act of understanding, every breath you shaped with care, every story you gently set down, every wall you built in your sanctuary, every moment you chose stillness over struggle, all of it has led you here, to this threshold, to this quiet, shimmering edge where wakefulness begins to thin and something deeper, something older, something infinitely more restful begins to rise up to meet you. You are entering what scientists call the hypnagogic state. It is the bridge between waking and sleeping, and it is one of the most extraordinary experiences the human brain is capable of producing. Right now, if you could see inside your own skull, you would see something beautiful happening. The fast, busy brain waves that have dominated your night, the sharp beta waves of anxiety and analysis, have been gradually slowing. They have been softening, losing their edge, loosening their grip on your conscious awareness. And in their place, a different kind of wave is emerging. Theta waves. These are the waves of deep relaxation, of twilight consciousness, of the space between thought and dream. They are slower, wider, gentler, like the long rolling swells of a calm ocean compared to the choppy, frantic waves of a storm. And beneath the theta, deeper still, waiting with infinite patience, are the delta waves, the slowest waves your brain produces, the waves of deep, dreamless, restorative sleep, the waves that will carry you, when you are ready, all the way down to the bottom of the night. In this state, something remarkable happens to the sense of self, the anxious self, the one who has been so busy all night, the one who monitored and worried and clenched and guarded. That self begins to dissolve, not violently, not suddenly, but the way fog dissolves when the morning warms. The edges soften first. The sharp boundary between you and the room around you becomes less defined. You stop being quite sure where your body ends and where the bed begins. The weight of the blanket becomes indistinguishable from the weight of your own limbs. The temperature of the air and the temperature of your skin find each other and merge into a single, seamless warmth. This is not alarming. This is not loss. This is the dissolution of the barrier that anxiety built, the wall between you and rest that was made of vigilance and tension and the desperate need to remain in control. That wall is thinning now, and what lies on the other side is not emptiness. It is fullness, a fullness so complete that it needs no thought to sustain it. Your heart and your brain are doing something right now that they could not do while you were anxious. They are synchronizing. Scientists call this global coherence, a state in which the rhythm of the heart and the rhythm of the brain fall into alignment, beating together in a slow, unified pulse of safety. It is the physiological signature of deep peace. It is what your body does when every system has finally agreed, simultaneously and without reservation, that there is no threat. The guard has left the door. The watchtower is empty. The alarm has been silent for so long now that even the memory of its sound has faded. And in that silence, your heart and your brain have found each other, like two instruments in a vast orchestra that have finally landed on the same note, and they are holding it together, steady, slow, resonant. A single tone of rest that hums through every cell of your body. I want you to feel the weight of your body now. Not resist it, not adjust it, just feel it. Feel how heavy your legs have become. They are sinking into the surface beneath you, and the surface is accepting them completely. Your legs do not need to move tonight. They do not need to carry you anywhere. They have carried you through an entire day, and now they are done. And they are so heavy, so beautifully, gratefully heavy, that the idea of moving them feels like a memory from a distant life. Let them be heavy. Let them sink. Let gravity have them completely. Feel your arms, your hands, your fingers. They are resting somewhere beside you or across your chest, and they too have grown heavy. The tension in your forearms, in your wrists, in the small muscles of your fingers that you did not even know were clenched, it has melted. Your hands are open now, soft, still. They are the open hands we spoke of, the hands that are no longer grasping for sleep but simply lying in the quiet dark, palms up, receiving whatever comes. And what is coming is the night itself. Feel your chest rising and falling. The breath has become something that happens to you now, not something you do. You are no longer shaping it. You are no longer counting it. It moves through you the way a wave moves through water, without effort, without intention. Just the slow, eternal rhythm of a body that knows how to breathe without being asked. Each inhale draws the quiet of the room into your lungs. Each exhale releases the last traces of the day. And with every cycle, the boundary between your breath and the silence around you grows thinner, until you cannot quite tell if you are breathing the silence or if the silence is breathing you. I want you to imagine, one last time, something beautiful. Imagine that the night is not a darkness above you. Imagine that it is a vast, warm ocean beneath you. An ocean so calm that its surface is perfectly still, like black glass stretching out to every horizon. And you are floating on that surface, not swimming, not treading water, not doing anything at all, just floating. Your body is buoyant. The water holds you exactly as you are. It knows your weight. It knows your shape. It has been waiting for you all night, this ocean. And now that you are here, it holds you with a gentleness that requires nothing of you in return. You do not need to kick to stay afloat. You do not need to hold your breath. You do not need to keep your head above the surface. The surface is everywhere. The water is everywhere. And it is warm, so warm, the exact temperature of your own body, so that the boundary between your skin and the water has vanished, and you are not floating on the ocean anymore. You are part of it. The ocean is you. You are the ocean. And the ocean is quiet and deep and endless and safe. There was a candle burning earlier tonight. Do you remember? It was the flame of your vigilance, the small, persistent light of a mind that refused to go dark, because going dark meant being vulnerable. That candle has been burning for a long time. It has burned through your worry and your wakefulness and your effort and your resistance. And now, gently, without force, without any breath to blow it out, the flame is growing smaller, not because it has been extinguished, but because a different kind of light has risen, a light that does not flicker, a light that does not need fuel, a light that comes from somewhere so deep inside you that anxiety could never reach it. The candle's flame is simply no longer needed. It grows smaller, softer, a tiny point of gold in an ocean of warmth. And then, quietly, naturally, like a child closing its eyes, it rests. Your work is done. Do you hear me? Your work is done. You faced the amygdala and you understood it. You learned the feedback loop and you broke its cycle. You flushed the cortisol and invited the chemistry of peace. You found the vagus nerve and you used it to pull the emergency brake. You saw the stories of the night for what they were and you set them down. You built a sanctuary so real that your body believed it. You released the need to control and you opened your hand. You did all of that tonight. And now there is nothing left to do. There is nothing left to fix or solve or understand or build. There is only this breath, this weight, this warmth, this silence, this slow, endless, boundless dark that is not your enemy and never was. You are safe. You are held. You are allowed to rest. You are safe. You are held. The night is kind. You are safe. The ocean holds you. The silence holds you. The breath holds you. You are safe. You are still. You are here. And here is peace. Peace